What's going on, everyone out there, and welcome to another edition of the Final Wrap, your official NFL and fantasy football sports talk show with your host, the NFL Exporter, live each and every Tuesday, 7 p.m. right here on the Derek Shapiro Show. For those of you joining us for the first time, what we do here on the Final Wrap is take a look at fantasy football as well as all of the NFL games from each week and pretty much review and recap all of the action to see how things played out. Got another great show lined up for you today. Before we get into our first segment, as always, let's make sure you know how to connect with us on our social networks, which is the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with the latest news and updates. You can follow me on Twitter at NFLExporter. You can also go to Facebook.com/NFLExporter. And for behind the scenes footage and exclusive interviews, you want to make sure to subscribe to my channel. Go to YouTube.com, click on channels in the search engine, put NFL Exporter. For all the above, that is spelled NFLExporter. You also want to make sure to follow Derek Shapiro on Twitter. That's at Derek Shapiro Show. And show is spelled S-H-O. There's no W at the end of show. You can also send a friend request to Derek over on Facebook.com/Derek Shapiro. You'll see a picture of Derek along with former Fugees member Wyclef Jean in the picture that's on Derek's Facebook page. The call-in number to the show is 716-249-0552, or if you elect to hit us up using email, the email address is nflexporter@yahoo.com. Just leave your name, your city and state, your favorite football team, and whatever it is that you would like for me to talk about during the show. Just stick it in the email. I'll make sure to include it in one of our weekly segments. We're going to get things started today with fantasy football. We're going to take a look first at our studs. These are the top 5 scoring players from each respective position. This is standard format, and so maybe the players that I list may slightly vary a little bit due to some bonuses and how your point systems work, but pretty much this is as accurate as you can get it. This is just standard format, no extra bonuses or anything like that included. Starting off at the quarterback position, it was Aaron Rodgers, 28 points, just another spectacular game, 341 passing yards, 3 TDs. This guy just continues to play at a very high level, certainly a MVP candidate with the way that he's rolling right now. Next, you had Jay Cutler, and as we always say about Cutler, not a good football quarterback, but he could certainly do well for you in fantasy football. Had 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, gave you a couple yards on the ground. That was good for 23 points. Next is Russell Wilson. And as we told you about Russell Wilson on so many occasions, what he can do running the football pretty much makes him a must start every week. Didn't have the best game through the air. Second straight week where he did not throw for 200 yards. He did have 178 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, but it was his 8 rushes for 71 yards that added to his 15-point total to push him up to 22. Next, it was Andy Dalton. We like to call him Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know which Andy Dalton is going to show up each week. After a just dismal game the week before at home against Cleveland, came out on the road, played extremely well, completed 16 out of 22 passes, had 220 yards, 3 TDs. That was good for 21 points. And then rounding out our top 5, it was Josh McCown, another quarterback who had been inconsistent earlier in the year. Last couple weeks, though, get some weaker secondaries has certainly put up some fantasy-worthy numbers. This past week, 288 yards, 2 TDs, no interceptions. That was good for 19 points, as well as Andrew Luck. This guy has been on this list religiously all year. Another game throwing for over 300 yards, 2 TDs. Also gave you a couple yards rushing on the ground as well. Moving over to our running backs, this is a guy who I'm not sure if he's going to be in the top 5 again this year. Who knows what the future even holds. This guy, Jonas Gray, running back for the New England Patriots, had not scored a touchdown all year long. Really hadn't done anything that made him fantasy relevant outside of being the starting running back for a professional football team. This guy had a career high 199 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns Sunday night against the Indianapolis Colts. That was good for 43 points. This guy was only in 1% of lineups across for all NFL fantasy football rosters. So I can only assume it was probably his family as well as any New England Patriots fans who had this guy in the lineup. Never seen that one coming, but great job by the young guy there. Next, it was Le'Veon Bell. This guy had an outstanding game on Monday Night Football. 204 rushing yards, a touchdown. Also, always gives you some money through the air. That was good for 27 points. Jamal Charles just continues to climb his way up the ladder, coming up in the top 10 running backs overall for fantasy football. Another outstanding game, 159 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns against the Seattle Seahawks defense. I think at this point, Charles can do it against anybody. I think this guy has just completely proven himself as one of the best players in the NFL, flat out, period. Next, it was Eddie Lacy. And after a slow start, we're certainly seeing Lacy starting to come on here late. Not only is he doing it on the ground, he's definitely becoming more of an integral part of the screen game for Aaron Rodgers. Lacy had 69 yards on the ground in a touchdown, also scored on a receiving touchdown that helped power him to 22 points. And then rounding out our top 5, it was another usual suspect here, Rappin' Forte. That's right, Matt Forte, 100 yards on the ground, gave you another 50 yards in the air. I mean, what can't this guy, Matt Forte, do? Just simply amazing. And then you had Jeremy Hill, outstanding day for the Cincinnati Bengals. I tell you, this rookie really looks good. It'll be interesting to see when Giovanni Bernard comes back, how that workload is going to split up. But Hill, second time in 3 weeks, he was up over 150 yards on 27 carries against the New Orleans Saints. That was good for 16 points as well. Next, it was the wide receiver position. We're talking about rookie Mike Evans. I mean, this guy, 209 yards on 7 catches, 2 TDs. Absolutely burnt the sorry Redskins defense. This rookie is definitely playing at a high level. What a great rookie class of wide receivers this is. And this guy is certainly a budding star for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's hot right now. This guy has 7 TDs in his last 5 games. Has just become a big-time player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Next, it was Brandon Marshall of the Chicago Bears. Had 7 catches, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think we all seen that coming. Great matchup for him against Minnesota. And then his running buddy on the other side took advantage of this matchup as well. Alshon Jeffries had 11 catches, 135 yards, and a touchdown as well. That was good for 18 points. And then you also had two receivers tied with 18. A guy we never would have thought of made this list, Kenny Britt, wide receiver, St. Louis Rams, had a 69-yard touchdown early that catapulted him to a day of 128 yards and a touchdown. And then A.J. Green, definitely happy to see him back fully healthy after the early struggles with the toe injury. Had 127 yards on 6 catches and a TD as well. Rounding out our top 5 at the wide receiver position, you have Michael Floyd, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, had 2 early touchdowns, 54 yards. That was good for 17 points. Michael Floyd, again, a wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. Moving over to the tight end position, you had Kobe Fleener. The Indianapolis Colts have 114 receiving yards. That was good there to lead the tight ends. Next, it was Jermaine Gresham and Rob Gronkowski. Different fashion. Both of these guys, 13 points. It was Gresham basically on 2 short goal line touchdowns that helped him to get 13. For Gronkowski, it was 71 yards and a touchdown to help him get his points. Coming in at number 3, you have Larry Donnell. Certainly been a solid tight end play all year for the New York Giants. We know how tight end friendly Eli Manning is. He'll continue to get a lot of targets there. He had 56 receiving yards and a touchdown. At 4, we've got 2 tight ends tied. I'm quite sure nobody had these guys in their lineup. I'm talking about Chase Kaufman. He's the backup tight end for Delaney Walker out in Tennessee. He had 9 points, along with Garrett Graham, tight end for the Houston Texans, had 9 points as well. Rounding out our top 5 is tight end Heath Miller, the veteran for the Pittsburgh Steelers, had 70 receiving yards. That was good for 7 points. Moving over to our defense and special teams, it was the Green Bay Packers yet again. And I tell you, these guys at home right now with how much pressure Aaron Rodgers and that offense is putting on opposing teams by how quickly and early and often they're scoring. It's really allowing for this Packers defense and special teams to open up. The Packers 3 touchdowns on defense, an interception return, a fumble return, as well as a punt return, giving the Eagles a little bit of taste of their own medicine. That was good for 26 points. Tampa Bay Buccaneers were all over RG3, had a pick 6 to help them get 21 points. 49ers defense caught Eli Manning for 5 interceptions. That helped them to get 15 points. Arizona Cardinals D, lights out, did not allow a single touchdown by that high-powered Detroit offense, held them in check. That was good for 12 points. And the San Diego Chargers took advantage of rookie Derek Carr, this woeful Raiders team, unable to muster up anything. That was good for 10 points as well. Moving over to our kickers, Greg Zuerlein, outstanding day for the St. Louis Rams in their shocking upset victory over the Denver Broncos. He had 20 points. Next, it was Matt Bryant, and he's certainly been a consistent kicker. 2 straight weeks there, 15 points for him. Next, you had Randy Bullock, kicker for the Houston Texans with 13. Phil Dawson, kicker for the San Francisco 49ers on the road, chipped in 11. And then you had 4 kickers all tied with 10 points to round out our top 5. That being Adam Vinatieri of the Colts, Mike Nugent of the Cincinnati Bengals, Sean Swisham of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Mason Crosby of the Green Bay Packers. And so those were your Week 11 fantasy football studs, the top 5 players at each respective position. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to look at our duds. That's right, the players who did not perform at a high level in Week 11. Good chance, especially if you had multiple players on your team from this list, probably didn't fare too well. So don't touch that dial. It's the NFL Exporter live on the Derek Shapiro Show. You are listening to the Final Wrap. We'll be right back. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Final Wrap with your host, the NFL Exporter, live on the Derek Shapiro Show. Don't forget, I'm here each and every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, recapping all of your fantasy football and NFL action from the prior week. Now, let's move over to our fantasy football duds. These are the players who underperformed greatly last week and probably played a major part in your team losing if you were relying on these guys heavily or you had multiple players in your lineups. Starting at the quarterback position, I haven't seen this in a while. This was a down week for quarterbacks around the NFL. The list is kind of lengthy, so hang on here with me. Eli Manning, only 5 points. Again, we 5 interceptions, and after a 3-week stretch, and that's really been the only glimmer in this poor Giants season. Got off to a 0-2 start. Then they won 3 straight games, and then they've turned around and lost 5 straight. And Eli Manning certainly has played a role in that. This guy continues to be a turnover machine. I mean, 5 interceptions. Granted, all of them weren't his fault, but he is the quarterback. They go on his stats. And if you had him in your lineup, I mean, just 5 points from any quarterback, single digits from any quarterback, completely unacceptable. He wasn't the only one. I'm really shocked at Matt Stafford's performance this past week. I mean, I know that the Arizona Cardinals are a very good defensive team, especially out there in the desert. But I've seen a quarterback that wasn't playing that confident. I understand that the Arizona knows how to mix their coverages up, but I really kind of blame this on the Lions' game plan. There wasn't a lot of creativity. They were not bold. They were not confident, and they had some opportunities in the red zone. And the play calling, it just wasn't there. And so Stafford, 183 yards, an interception, didn't throw a touchdown. I'm just surprised by that. 5 points as well. I actually had him on one of my teams, and he certainly was a major part of my team losing. Next, Kyle Orton. Again, just poor performance at Miami. 192 passing yards, no touchdowns. It's not going to cut it. I think we all seen this one coming. We know that the Dolphins' defense amongst the best in the NFL, especially playing in Miami. These guys really know how to turn it up another notch. Ben Roethlisberger, 10 points. I mean, this guy has struggled mightily. Guy was hot the first 2 weeks, I should say, the month of November, but the last 2 weeks, this guy has certainly cooled off a ton. Could only muster up 10 points against the sorry Tennessee Titans defense on Monday Night Football. So certainly did not give you what you needed there. Phillip Rivers continues to struggle. Only 11 points. This guy could only muster up one touchdown pass. Couldn't even get 200 yards against the Raiders. I had some major issues going on out there in San Diego. Robert Griffin III continues to be a quarterback who, I mean, at this point, I don't know what it's going to take for him to turn the corner. He's under so much scrutiny. He's under so much pressure. Everything that he does is magnified and highlighted. The media is down his throat. Now he's back once again having conflict with teammates, and the head coach didn't speak too highly of him this week. And so I think this is a guy right now who I don't know. He's kind of in a position where he's almost had to alienate himself from everyone in order to hopefully try to pull it together. But it's just not working out right now for RG3 and the sorry Redskins, who suffered a horrible loss to a 1-win Tampa Bay team last week. Colin Kaepernick continues to be average at best. This guy can only throw one TD pass, not over 200 yards. And, the 49ers defense had 5 interceptions. And San Francisco's offense could only muster up one touchdown. They're another team that, I mean, it's just absolutely pathetic the way that their offense is playing. And then you're taking a look at Mark Sanchez for Philly. Yeah, this is what I was talking about in regards to Sanchez. The body of work, we really needed to wait and see what was going to happen to him. I certainly think that what we've seen out of him is what we can expect. He's going to have some good games. He certainly put up some decent numbers. But the turnovers, they're going to find themselves into the equation somehow, some way. And especially Philadelphia's defense is so poor. If you play a team like Green Bay who can put points on the board, it's going to put extra pressure on. So Sanchez, I still think he's going to be able to do practically what Nick Foles was able to do, and that's lead this Eagles offense. But not a good performance at all by Mark Sanchez. 2 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown, and he really should have not had that third turnover. Just did a poor job of trying to pick the football up on a snap that went over his head. Just not good football there. And then 3 quarterbacks in at 14. Matt Ryan, only 1 touchdown for the second straight week. His fantasy value is starting to bottom out. Drew Brees, again, 14 points. I mean, for a guy who was taken religiously in the first or second rounds, he spent more time on this dud list this year than the stud list. Surprising. Drew Brees just not playing at a high level. And Tom Brady, it was really a couple interceptions, one ill-advised, the other one was just a good play by the defender, but that dropped his point total down from 18 to 14. Just missed out. For those of you who don't know, 15 is our magic number for quarterbacks. If you got 15 points or more, it will either get you on the stud list or you did well. If you're scoring 14 points or less, you're certainly going to end up on the dud list. Running backs this week, absolutely horrible. Trent Richardson, 2 points. I mean, that Colts running game has got to get it together. Charles Sims, rookie running back for Tampa Bay. If this guy is planning on having a career in the NFL, more than 30 rushing yards are necessary. He's not doing much. I don't think it matters at this point who's running the ball in Tampa Bay. Very ineffective there. Jonathan Stewart, no excuse. Against Atlanta, only 3 points. Darren Sproles, not sure how he got lost in the equation. I thought this was a perfect matchup for him against the Green Bay Packers. Jerick McKinnon couldn't take advantage of this sorry Bears defense, although he did come into this game questionable with a little bit of a back injury. Andre Ellington, I spoke on him last week. I think it's going to be tough for him moving forward with Drew Stanton at quarterback. He's got a brutal schedule. You know that the Lions were not going to give it up. Only 6 points for him. And Shane Vereen, only 6 points as well. But again, Jonas Gray had an outstanding day on the ground, which kind of limited his production at the running back position. 7 points is the number that we're looking for there. At the wide receiver position, a lot of disappointments here. Golden Tate thought he would have a meaningful game against Arizona, but was completely left out of the loop there. Only 4 points. Vincent Jackson, I think he's now kind of giving way to Mike Evans in that lead role. Out in Tampa Bay, he only had 4 points. Julio Jones, points. 7th straight game without a touchdown. Unbelievable, this guy. Only 5 points. Calvin Johnson, it's been a disappointment this year. He dropped a touchdown earlier this year against Carolina. Missed a ton of time due to injuries. Comes back this week after a very good game at home against Miami. Had a drop in this one. Just certainly would have gave his numbers a little bit of a boost, but only 5 points for Megatron. Keenan Allen continues to struggle. Although he had 8 catches, only 65 yards. I mean, come on, let's put some yardage on this thing. Brandon LaFell, again, it was really the game plan. LaFell is on the list because he was a relevant fantasy football player. Only 6 points. Certainly could have helped some teams like mine. I lost by 6 or a touchdown by him. Certainly would have helped me out. But again, it was the game plan. New England was kind of in full command, running the football a lot. And you look at that Andre Johnson, yet again, 7 catches, only 68 yards. He's got to find a way to get that yardage up, as well as those TDs. At the wide receiver position, 7 points is the magic number as well. Our tight ends, 5 is the magic number there. 50 yards worth of work is a good day of production for most tight ends in the NFL. Vernon Davis, where are you? 0 points. I mean, this guy is probably going to end up being the biggest bust at the tight end position this year. Him and Jordan Cameron, I mean, it's just inexcusable. I wish he would come out and say what the problem is. There's just no excuse for it. I think it's a huge problem. San Francisco's offense is struggling a lot, especially in the red zone. Travis Kelce of Kansas City, Jared Cook of St. Louis, Jordan Reed of Washington, 1 point. Absolutely not. Inexcusable. I think for all of these guys, you shouldn't have them in your lineups. I mean, Kelce, matchup based, certainly. Cook, probably the same thing. A new quarterback in there now, so you don't know how this thing is going to play out. And then Jordan Reed, I mean, this guy's constantly getting injured, re-aggravated a hamstring, whatever. Moving over to Jimmy Graham, I think this is probably the biggest one here. 2 points against Cincinnati. No excuse for it. I don't care what you say, under any circumstances, inexcusable. Martellus Bennett, I see him as a guy who's starting to go by the wayside now, out in Chicago, just getting caught up in the wash. Marshall and Alshon and Forte, those guys demand those targets. Charles Clay, another subpar effort, 3 points. Antonio Gates, only 3 points. He struggled this year against the Raiders. And then also a guy who hurt you majorly, Julius Thomas. This guy's been very unproductive the last month. Ends up tweaking his ankle, doesn't put in any production. And when I had to look at my ESPN league this week, and I lose by 6 points, I'm saying Brady only 14, 2 interceptions. I'm saying Brandon LaFell, a little bit more yardage out of you. And Julius Thomas, certainly expected some yards out of you. So that was a tough loss for me. As I mentioned, if you had multiple players from this list on your team, in your lineup, I'm no exclusion, you likely lost, and I did. I lost by 6 points. Very costly for me in my ESPN league. Moving over now to our defense and special teams. Usually this list takes care of itself. I had 5 defenses this week with negative points. So that speaks volumes. The Eagles, -5. Let Green Bay put 53 on them. Inexcusable. Colts, -5. Patriots posted 42 on their heads, inexcusable. The Saints defense did absolutely nothing. They're a huge part of why this team is stinking it up right now. -2 points at home against turnover prone Andy Dalton. Vikings, -1. Surprised by Mike Zimmer, but the stats that this Bears team put up, we'll talk about that once we get into the individual games. Amazing. -1 for the Vikings. And the Cleveland Browns, inexcusable at home. You got Ryan Mallett starting for the first time all year. You can't even muster up positive points there. -1 for the Cleveland Browns. All those defenses, just poor performances this past week if you had them in your lineups. Taking over to our kickers now. McManus, the kicker for Denver, 1 point. I mean, come on, you're 1 point. Unreal. Robbie Gould and Chandler Cardinale, 2 points? No, absolutely not. Graham Gano for Carolina, 3 points? Inexcusable. Shane Graham, kicker for the Saints, inexcusable. And Josh Brown, kicker for the Giants, 5 points. It's not going to cut it. When you're looking at Cardinale out in Arizona, I guess you can give him a pass because Drew Stanton's in that quarterback. But I'm looking at McManus, the kicker for Denver. I'm looking at Shane Graham, the kicker for New Orleans. You got Drew Brees and Peyton Manning at quarterback. I know that you're attached to those offenses, but when you put those kickers in, you're expecting 7 or more points at the kicker position. 6 is the magic number. I can understand if your team struggles, but 2 field goals a minimum you should be able to pull in. Those guys just absolutely did not perform at a level. And so again, those are your fantasy duds of the week for fantasy football. Just going to wrap up our fantasy football section. We're going to run to another quick break. When we come back, we're going to start recapping our week 11 games from around the NFL. So stay tuned. It's the NFL Exporter live on the Derek Shapiro Show. Welcome back to the final wrap with your host, the NFL Exporter. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at NFLExporter or send me a friend request over on Facebook.com/NFL Exporter. For both of those, the spelling again is NFLExporter. Now let's go ahead and start reviewing our Week 11 games from around the NFL. Things got started on Thursday Night Football. You had the Miami Dolphins with a big home victory, AFC Division East battle with the Buffalo Bills. Miami won at 122-9. That win improved Miami to 6-4. The Bills dropped to 5-5. They've got a huge uphill battle these last 6 games trying to make a wild card push. Looking at how this game worked out. First half, very low scoring defensive battle. How we all thought it was Buffalo leading this one 6-3 at halftime. But the tall tale of the tape here, Miami second half outscored Buffalo 19-3. After both of these teams struggled to move the ball, Ryan Tannehill and that offense finally were able to break through. Got the running game going a little bit, led by 86 yards by Lamar Miller. Ryan Tannehill, 240 yards, 2 TDs, and that really was it. You know, when you look at this ball game, Buffalo struggling to run the football mightily this year. Only 19 carries for 54 yards. That's not the recipe for success, period, in the NFL, let alone playing at Miami. Miami was able to get 24 carries for 125 yards, but the big difference was the quarterback play. As we mentioned, Ryan Tannehill, 240 yards, 2 TDs. Kyle Orton, only 190 yards, no touchdowns. And so, that's pretty much how this one worked out. Defenses played evenly, but when it was most important, Miami was able to make the necessary plays on the ground as well as through the air. Buffalo Bills were not able to, and once the momentum got rolling in Miami's favor, and the game was played in Miami, they really fed off the crowd and the energy, and were able to put the Bills away. And so, tough loss for Buffalo, good win for Miami. Both these teams again fighting for their playoff lives these last 6 weeks of the season. Next, it was Chicago beating Minnesota 21-3. Both of these teams now 4-6, and I have to say this: I'm not impressed with Chicago at all. I certainly think this team is a joke. After getting clobbered the last 2 weeks that they played, giving up 55 points, when I seen in the third quarter, mind you, Chicago was only up in this game 14-10. And I see Jay Cutler and Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. They're on the sideline. They're laughing. They're joking around, chalking it up. And I'm saying, you guys are happy that you're beating Minnesota at home by 4 points. Game wasn't even over yet. You guys are so happy that you finally can put up some stats. That's all you care about. Brandon Marshall, you finally get 2 touchdowns. You're happy now. Jeffrey, 135 yards, a touchdown. You're happy. Jay Cutler, 330 yards. You still had 2 interceptions. And I look at this Bears team and I laugh to myself because I say you're playing a rookie quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater, rookie running back Jerick McKinnon, young team on defense, and you barely squeaked this game out by 8 points. you're not a good team. It really was Minnesota's struggles on third down, which you come to expect from rookie Teddy Bridgewater. Only can convert 2 of 11 third downs, which led to 17 extra minutes of time of possession for Chicago. And again, they only win this game by 8 points. So not impressed at all by the Chicago Bears. I think this team is a joke. I do not see them making the playoffs. And it showed me that all this team cares about is stats. And to be completely honest with you, Jay Cutler got lucky on a couple of these TD passes. One was a Hail Mary type pass to Marshall. And he was able to go up and get it. Defender just basically got lost with the football in the air. And then the touchdown he threw to Jeffries was in the double coverage. He's lucky Alshon was able to come down with that. So Cutler's still very risky. This week it worked out in his favor, but I do not see things working out like that the rest of the year for these sorry Bears. Next, it was Houston beating the Cleveland Browns 23-7. Houston now only one game out of first place behind Indianapolis Colts. Cleveland 6-4. They're now in second place in the AFC North Division. And Cleveland continues to struggle running the football. That's the main thing that's really hurting the squad right now. 24 carries, 58 yards. It's a circus over there. It's a circus now. News coming out of Cleveland this week. It is actually shocking. It's actually earlier today, which was Tuesday. They've decided to part ways with running back Ben Tate, who they brought in the offseason to take over the lead running back role in Cleveland. But he had been inconsistent. Had some injuries, but it was most notably 2 rookies, Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell, are more explosive, kind of better runners than Tate. And Tate last week took to the media, spoke out about his unhappiness, about his playing time and the amount of carries that he got. We all seen that as being unprofessional, not being a team guy. At that point, the Browns were off of a victory. They were 6-3 in first place in their division. And I think it's kind of being a hater. You got other guys in the backfield working hard like you. And if they're given an opportunity, you don't go mouthing off to the media, whining and crying and complaining about what you don't like. And so they gave him the axe. He's now done. They're going to roll with West and Crowell moving forward, which I think was a wise decision to make. But nonetheless, they've got to get their running game fixed. 24 carries for 58 yards is not going to cut it. Cleveland also struggled on third downs. When we recap these games every week, there's 2 things that always stand out that we see. Teams who cannot convert on third downs, teams who turn the football over, teams who cannot run. Those teams usually end up losing. And in this game, Cleveland only can convert 3 out of 15 third downs, which led to Houston running the football 54 times for 213 yards. Alfred Blue did an outstanding job in Arian Foster's absence, putting up Foster-type numbers with 156 yards. Just couldn't find the end zone. But the guy that really stood out in this one was quarterback Ryan Mallett. First start for Houston, they decided to bench Ryan Fitzpatrick, which I think was long overdue and the right thing to do. Mallett came out impressive, completed 20 out of 30 passes, moved the chains, accurate with the football, spread the wealth around, 211 yards, 2 TDs and an interception. I certainly like Houston's chances with him in the lineup much better than Fitzpatrick. One of Mallett's touchdown passes was to J.J. Wyatt, his second TD reception of the year, his 4th overall. This guy, it's really nothing he can't do. Nice win there for the Houston Texans on the road. Next, Kansas City at Seattle. This was certainly one of the best games on Sunday. Real hard-hitting defensive affair like we anticipated. The Groundhogs got it in. Marshawn Lynch, 24 carries, 124 yards. Got stopped, though, a couple times around the goal line, which was a surprise. Chiefs, the only team in the league to have not given up a rushing touchdown all year. But Jamal Charles, I think this guy really put his signature on this game and really on his legacy right now. Let's face it, this guy is an absolute animal on the football field. There's nothing that Jamal Charles can't do. He's a complete back and just a great football player. Really a joy to watch him do his thing every week. It's just a matter of time. I didn't waste any time in this one. 20 carries for 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just put the Chiefs on his back and really made this thing happen. Through the air, it was rather quiet. Alex Smith, only 108 passing yards. You look at Russell Wilson, only 172 passing yards, though he had 2 TDs. I think the key in this ball game was Seattle's bad management. Look, with 7 minutes left in this ball game, Seattle had a 4th down on about the 2-yard line. And I like the aggressive attitude. I like the aggressive nature. But on the road, and you're supposed to trust in your defense. And in that situation, Seattle could have kicked the field goal to only be down 24-23. 7 minutes left in the ball game. At that point, you either hold Kansas City to a field goal, and then at that point you come back down and score a touchdown, or you just stop Kansas City, get the ball back. All you need is a field goal to win at that point. So I don't know if this was more of Seattle just trying to be aggressive and win the ball game on the road. I think it was more of a result of them not being confident in their defense and being able to slow Jamal Charles down. And that says a lot because the Seahawks defense has prided itself on stepping up in the big moments. And I really think that the head coach and that staff not having confidence in that defense was the wrong move. I think this was a game that if Seattle would have played the odds correctly, kick the field goal with 7 minutes left, try to stop Kansas City and get the ball back to win it, I think that would have worked out more to their favor. So I'm going to blame a lot of this on their coaching staff. Even though they were being aggressive, I think it's the wrong call to make on the road. Next, you have Kansas City now 7-3, tied with Denver for first place in the AFC West. Seattle now 6-4. 3 games in the loss column behind the Arizona Cardinals. Moving on to our next game, it was Atlanta at Carolina. This was a very dull, kind of sloppy ball game. If you had any interest in this one, I know myself I didn't. With the exception of some fantasy football things, but Atlanta gets the win 19-17. Falcons surprisingly at 4-6 in first place. That NFC South division, I mean, those teams are flat out garbage. 4-6, and you're in first place in your division. It's a joke. In this one, Carolina, the struggles remain the same. This team struggling to run the football, offensive line issues, Cam Newton too, early interceptions. It's just painful watching that offense struggle. Again, a team that couldn't convert on third downs, only 3 out of 13. They had a chance late to win it. Field goal blocked at the end. It was going to be a 63-yarder outside, so probably wasn't going to make it anyway. But Atlanta, not impressive either. They did enough to win. Matt Ryan, 1 touchdown pass, didn't turn the football over. Roddy White, 75 yards and a touchdown, and that was about it. This was a field goal affair by Matt Bryant. He was second on our fantasy football list for kickers, so not impressed with either one of these teams at all. I think both of them ironically are still very much in a playoff hunt, but it is only going to be winning in their own division. That's going to be it. That NFC South division, just very poor football going on across the board there. Cincinnati went out to New Orleans, speaking of these sorry teams in the NFC South, and got a very impressive victory over the Saints. When you look at this one, it was really about what Cincinnati did more than what it was New Orleans did not do. You look at Cincinnati, all aspects of the game pretty much played flawless offensively. Andy Dalton, 16 out of 22 completions, 220 yards, 3 TDs. On the ground, they got it done. Jeremy Hill led the way. 27 carries, 152 yards. A.J. Green, 6 catches, 127 yards, a TD through the air. So the balance, perfect there for Cincinnati. And then on defense, did a great job at limiting Jimmy Graham, held him to 5 catches for 29 yards. Also did a great job stopping up the run. New Orleans had been doing a much better job running over the last month with Mark Ingram back at running back. 3 straight 100-yard games he had coming in. You thought this was a perfect matchup for him, but sometimes teams just say not today, and that's exactly what Cincinnati did. New Orleans only able to get 26 carries for 75 yards. Cincinnati had 186 rushing yards in that game. And so Cincinnati back in first place in the AFC North, 6-3-1. New Orleans now in second place in the NFC South at 4-6. We're going to run to another quick break. When we come back, we'll finish recapping our Week 11 games from around the NFL. So make sure you come back. It's the final wrap with the NFL Exporter live on the Derek Shapiro Show. welcome back to the final wrap with the NFL Exporter live on the Derek Shapiro Show. Let's go ahead and finish recapping our NFL games from week 11 around the NFL. And the biggest surprise and shocker of the day, it was the St. Louis Rams getting an impressive victory at home, 22-7 over the Denver Broncos. No one seen this coming here. We all know how well St. Louis defense plays, especially at home. But when you see Peyton Manning in this offense coming to town, and you looked at St. Louis starting a new quarterback now in Sean Hill, when you just looked at this matchup on paper, you knew it wasn't going to be easy, but you knew that Denver was going to get the win. And this is why this is the NFL, and we use the term any given Sunday because anything can happen, and that was exactly the case in this one. You look at this one for Denver, and everything went wrong for them. I'm going to start, though, on the ground for Denver. This is an area that they are going to have to get better. When we did our mid-season review, when we talked about Denver, we talked about how they're going to have to find a way to run the football. And this year, when Ronnie Hillman has not been in there, they've struggled mightily to do so. You look at Denver, 10 carries for just 28 yards. Not going to cut it. Not going to cut it, especially against a team like St. Louis who can get after the quarterback. They got to Peyton Manning early and often. He was frustrated all day. Denver only converting on 4 of 12 third down conversions. You couple that with only 28 rushing yards. Peyton Manning throwing the football over 50 times. A couple interceptions. You know that's going to be in the equation. And then also Denver got hit by the injury bug. Emmanuel Sanders had to leave the game with a concussion. So we'll check his status for this upcoming week's game. Julius Thomas tweaked an ankle. It appears to be nothing serious, but he had to leave the ball game. And then Monty Ball, their running back, who was lost earlier in the season for an extended amount of time with a groin injury, re-aggravated that groin injury, so he had to leave as well. So at that point, Peyton Manning was pretty much down to Demaryius Thomas as the only guy he was familiar with. Backup C.J. Anderson, backup running back, I should say. C.J. Anderson did a decent job, had 8 catches for 86 yards, but Wes Welker is not a factor in there anymore, so you got left with Demaryius Thomas. So for St. Louis, everything went right. Sean Hill protected the football, had 220 yards passing and a touchdown. Trey Mason certainly was able to help St. Louis on the ground. 29 carries, 113 yards. His rookie class is just very talented. He looked very good. And again, though, St. Louis's defense just really got after Peyton Manning. And that Denver Broncos offense, Greg Zuerlein, the kicker for St. Louis, was our top kicker stud for the week with 20 points. So now Denver 7-3, as we mentioned, tied for first place with Kansas City. St. Louis now 4-6. I don't see them making the playoffs, but they're going to be very difficult for any team to beat moving forward, especially if you have to make that trip out to St. Louis. 49ers improved to 6-4 with a 16-10 victory over the Giants, 3-7. I'll say this about the 49ers, like I said about the Chicago Bears, and like I'm going to say a little bit later about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm going to say next about the San Diego Chargers. Not impressive. Not impressive. If you get 5 turnovers and you can only put up 16 points, your offense is pathetic. Bottom line. Giants continue to struggle running the football. It's another reason why Eli's passing so much. Only can muster up 65 yards on 21 rush attempts. 49ers defense amongst the best in the NFL right now. These guys are playing lights out. But when you look at San Francisco, they were able to get 37 carries for 148 yards. So you see the 49ers running the football a lot more. Nonetheless, they got to put up more points. I mean, come on again. Eli Manning's giving you 5 extra possessions, and you can only put up 1 touchdown all game. You can only put up 16 points. Inexcusable. Giants had a chance to even win this at the end. That was another interception by Manning that cost them. But I'm not impressed with the 49ers right now. I'm very impressed with their defense. I will say that. But not impressed with their offense at all. They've got to find a way to pick it up, or they could possibly not even make the playoffs. The other interesting thing in this one, you keep seeing interior problems for this 49ers team manifest itself. Guys just complaining. They're not liking what's going on. And in this one, Ahmad Brooks Brooks, outstanding outside linebacker who actually won that game for the 49ers last week in New Orleans, pulled himself out of the game, being unhappy with his playing time, that he's sharing playing time with the guy much younger than him, and rightfully so. Brooks has been a staple in this 49ers defense so long, no reason for him whatsoever to be splitting time. And so, 49ers, they're going to continue to try to get better and try to make a playoff push, while the Giants, I think at this point, just trying to play some clean football without turnovers and be competitive the rest of the way is probably their short-term goal there. San Diego beat Oakland 13-6. San Diego now 6-4. The Raiders 0-10. And as I mentioned, there wasn't much to talk about in this game. San Diego should not be happy about this win. You're playing at home, even though when San Diego and the Raiders play, they're so close together. It's really not a home field advantage for anyone. But nonetheless, it was an early Phillip Rivers to Malcolm Floyd touchdown to give San Diego a 7-0 lead. After that, it was a field goal fest. 3 more field goals from Nick Novak, kicker for San Diego. 2 field goals by Sebastian Janikowski for the Raiders, and that was it. This was a 13-6 win. Again, for San Diego, this team can't run a football right now. If you beat the Raiders only by 7 points, you got some serious issues. And I think San Diego needs to figure it out quickly if they want to try to make a playoff push, and the time to start doing that is right now. Next, we talked about Aaron Rodgers early, and I mean, this Green Bay Packers team just avalanche. These Philadelphia Eagles coming in here. Looking at the stat sheet, this one here, it was all about Aaron Rodgers and this offense again. I mean, again, Rodgers 341, 3 TDs. Jordy Nelson up over 100 yards, a touchdown. Randall Cobb up over 100 yards. Eddie Lacy 2 TDs. So offense, they're clicking on all cylinders. This one was over early. It was 13-3 in the second quarter. I mean, it happened so fast. You just never even know what hit you. Philadelphia 4 turnovers. They're certainly not going to win ball games on the road. Shady McCoy, 23 carries, 88 yards, but it was ineffective. It had no impact on this game whatsoever. Mark Sanchez, a bit shaky there, 2 interceptions, although 2 TDs. But Philadelphia's defense is what sticks out to me. Not well. And this was a team that coming into the season we knew could put up points. But we know that their defense isn't good. And, man, I tell you right now, I don't know what they can do to change this thing around. When they come against these teams who can put up points, it appears that they're going to be in serious trouble if they don't get things turned around quickly. And I don't think so, because they really don't have the personnel in the trenches to make this thing happen, as well as at the linebacker position. Nonetheless, Packers now tied with Detroit, first place 7-3. Philadelphia as well, 7-3, tied for first place in the NFC East with the Dallas Cowboys. Packers will see Detroit at the end of the year. Philly is going to be playing Philly is going to be playing Dallas Thanksgiving night. So that one right there could determine early. These two teams have to play twice this year, but it'll give one of those teams an early edge to that NFC East title. Moving on, Arizona at Detroit, and again, I will say this: Arizona's defense, lights out, especially in the desert. Probably the best in the NFL when you're talking about playing defense at home. Probably right up there with Detroit in Miami. But it was 2 early touchdowns from Drew Stanton and Michael Floyd to give Arizona an early 14-0 lead. From there, it was an uphill battle for Detroit. And, I would tell you this. When I looked at what Detroit did in this ball game, as much credit, and I'm giving it all to Arizona, held Matt Stafford to 183 yards, Megatron only 50 yards, Golden Tate only 40 yards, didn't allow a single touchdown. Detroit 5 out of 15 third down conversions. But this was a game when I look at Detroit losing this one 14-6, I'm saying that Detroit played scared. I question the play calling. And there were certainly some missed opportunities in this ball game. You had Calvin Johnson dropping like maybe a 40-yard catch, went right off of his body. I look at before halftime, you're down 14-3 on the road. They're inside the 10-yard line, 4th and 2. I understand that you want to take points and come out and have an opportunity, but you got to go for it. You got to show some heart. I mean, there's no reason on a 4th and 2 inside the 10-yard line right before halftime. Sometimes you have to be more aggressive. Forget this field goal. You've got Matt Stafford, you've got Calvin Johnson, Joy Bell had been playing well, you've got Golden Tate. Young tight end Ebron had a pretty decent game. Dial up something. get the 2 yards, you get your butt in the end zone. I mean, so inexcusable to me for this Detroit team. I seen them go for it on another 4th and 2. It wasn't so much that Matt Stafford overthrew Calvin Johnson as much as it was come with a better play call. So nothing taken away from Arizona. They're now 9-1, commanding 3-game lead in the NFC West division, and commanding 2-game lead over any other team in the NFC. But this Detroit Lions team, offensively, their defense played well, kept them in the football game. You're looking at, again, Arizona did score after the first quarter. But I'm looking at Detroit's offense, and I've got to question the aggressiveness, the play calling, and just the overall heart. I don't like it. I didn't like it at all. 6 points for a team with those players on offense. It's inexcusable and unacceptable. Bottom line. Moving on to our next game, it was New England knocking off Indianapolis 42-20. New England now 8-2. Indianapolis 6-4. And you got to give Bill Belichick, you got to give the Patriots credit. Great point brought up that if you recall last year's playoff game in New England, it was LeGarrette Blount who gashed this Colts defense on the ground for over 200 rushing yards and a couple of touchdowns. They went back to that same recipe and it worked. So there's obviously something that they see in this Colts run defense that they can succeed against them. This year was Jonas Gray, 199 rushing yards, 4 TDs. Just completely ran all over these Indianapolis Colts, and I think it caught the Colts by surprise. I don't think they were ready. They were so focused on Brady and the passing game. They just got shredded on the ground. You look at the third down conversion discrepancy. Tom Brady, very accurate, 9 of 12 third down conversions. For Indianapolis, only 5 out of 13. I think the other tall tale tape in this one is only 19 rushing yards for Indianapolis. This is a team that we spoke about struggling mightily to run the football. So only 19 rushing yards. That's a shame, is what it is. There's no place for that in professional football. And I think to make matters worse for Indianapolis, they're likely going to be without Ahmad Bradshaw the rest of the year. He suffered a dislocated or broken ankle. So now all the weight's on Trent Richardson. But this was a statement game by New England. We see them do this throughout the years, where you have a young and up-and-coming team like Indianapolis looking to get some momentum, looking to try to draw a little bit closer to being competitive with New England. And New England just comes out and punches a team right in the mouth and sits them down. And that's exactly what they did in this one. So again, New England now 8-2, Indianapolis 6-4, only one game ahead of Houston. They've got to watch themselves. Houston breathing down their necks heavily. And then in our last game for Monday Night Football, I told you, not impressed at all. Pittsburgh basically was behind this whole football game. We know that bad teams find ways to lose, and that's exactly what Tennessee did. Now they're at 2-8, and for Pittsburgh, not impressive. If you look at Pittsburgh this year, losing to Tampa Bay, getting blown out by Cleveland, barely beating Jacksonville, who they losing to the Jets last week. This team is all over the place. Can't tell you how and when, what to expect from Pittsburgh. In particular, their defense is continuing to struggle. This one, luckily, Le'Veon Bell was there to save him. The big-time running back, 204 yards on the ground and a touchdown. And that's ultimately would allow Pittsburgh to control the clock. And that's what I'm saying. If you look at the Chicago game, where Chicago had 17 extra minutes of time of possession and can only win by 8, Pittsburgh, they had the ball for 2/3 of the game. They had the football for 40 minutes compared to only 20 by Tennessee, yet you barely escaped this one 27-24. So I know it's the NFL. You take wins how you can get them. But when I look across the NFL right now, Chicago, San Francisco, San Diego, Pittsburgh, those are some teams right now who are barely beating teams that they normally should dominate, especially under the circumstances that these games are brought up this week. Again, nonetheless, Pittsburgh now 7-4. They're tied for second place in that AFC North. Tennessee 2-8. We already knew that their season was over before this game even started. Continuing to struggle to run the football on the ground. Bishop Sankey and that offense just can't get it done. Only 49 rush yards for Tennessee. They're going to have to fix that problem very quickly. I think it's too late this year, but coming in next year, they got to find a way to run the football, or their problems are going to remain the same. That is the final wrap Those are all of your fantasy football stats, all of your Week 11 NFL games from around this past week that we got covered there. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me like you do every single week. Don't forget to be here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you happen to miss this broadcast here, the show re-airs every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also go to the archive section here on the Derek Shapiro Show. Look for NFL Exporter, and it has each month along with each episode, so you can pull it up and listen anytime at your own convenience. Once again, before I get out of here, make sure you follow me on Twitter at NFL Exporter. Send a friend request over on Facebook.com/NFL Exporter. You can also catch this episode along with a lot of exclusive behind the scene footage and interviews. You can go to YouTube.com, click on channels in the search engine, put NFL Exporter. For all the above, again, that's NFLExporter. Everybody have a safe week. And again, make sure you join me next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for another great edition for the final wrap. For the Derek Shapiro Show, I am the NFL Exporter, signing out 1100.